Men, in this video I'm going to be talking about what you should be eating to optimize your performance in work. Now, the fitness industry seems totally dedicated on improving your performance during your workouts and after your workouts, but the intention of this video is a little bit different, and it is to optimize your performance in your day-to-day line of work. So, my promise to you, if you give this video your full attention, you will understand the principles behind why you should be in a certain way to optimize your work performance, a couple of ideas of what you should be eating before work, during, and then after work. Does that sound alright? The importance of this is so you just don't get caught out. You can maintain a decent energy level throughout the day, and you can continue to function, in particular think at an optimized level, and not be eating certain foods that would benefit you in the gym during work, because it's unnecessary, to be honest. My name is Paul Green and I'm an online coach. I run the longevity program. I'm a former British paratrooper and Special Forces support group operator. I've spent most of the past decade training elite men across defence, including those in the RAF, the Royal Marines and the Parachute Regiment. What I've noticed in my time is that those that are getting on a little bit take on more leadership roles and responsibilities. So they have to be physically sharper, physically better and mentally better than everybody else, because they have to problem solve under high levels of stress. So with that in mind, I have a unique perspective on all of these matters. Hopefully they add a little bit more weight than your average lunatic on the internet. So let's get straight into it. The plan of this video, I'm going to take you through pre-work thought processes, during, and then after. Examples for each, and I'm going to send you on your merry way. So, does that sound alright? Nice one. So, pre-work thinking. So you just woke up and you are thinking, what can I have now in order to get my brain going? And something that is going to provide me with a feeling of being satiated for a large period of time. Typically, people say, well, I say the food industry, big food, Nestle, Kellogg's and all them crazy massive brands, will argue that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and funnily enough, they're the ones that sell the breakfast. They sell the sugar, the low quality carbohydrates. Now, if you were to enter the rabbit hole of eating low quality, heavily processed meals for your breakfast, 30 minutes later, you'd be hungry again. And you'd be no better off than you were at the start. So my recommendation for your pre-work meal is something that is high in protein and high in fat. The reason it is necessary to have something that is high in protein is because it will keep you fuller for longer. And something that is high in fat, it will help fuel your brain, so then you are optimized and your thought processes and all of your cognition is at a better rate. Another reason why taking carbohydrates out of the equation is that when you eat carbohydrates, they digest, they enter your bloodstream, you get an elevated blood sugar level. When that comes back down, you start feeling hungry. And hungry, making silly decisions with food and all the rest of it. But if you take carbohydrates out of the equation, you don't really feel hungry. Honestly, I tell you now, right, you do not really feel hungry. And you find 4 or 5 hours later, you're like, I haven't ate for 4 or 5 hours, like I probably should be eating. Because you've set yourself up pretty well, I'll go into the example shortly, you're more likely to make a more sensible decision when it comes to noon, in the middle of the day, and then so on. So, when I say high fat, I do not mean low quality fats. What I mean is, let's say some fatty meat and some eggs. So for example, like grass-fed beef and some eggs. Let's say 3 eggs and let's say 100 grams or 200 grams of grass-fed beef. And I know some of you might be thinking, are you freaking serious? That's a bit of a crazy breakfast. Trust me, right? You're getting a lot of nutrients in this meal. You're getting a lot of nutrients from the beef, you're getting some good fats from the beef as well, and you are getting a lot of nutrients out of the eggs, including the yolks. Cook the eggs, cook the beef in some olive oil and some butter. Happy days, salt and pepper, job done. With them numbers, 100 or let's say 200 grams of grass-fed beef, 4 eggs, you're probably looking at about 600 calories. Now, if you were to have a bowl of porridge, 100 grams of oats with 200 grams of milk, some honey, some blueberries, that's about 600 calories. So the actual energy amount is the same, but what you're getting with regards to nutrients is so much better in the first option that I've mentioned. But also what you're getting protein and fats. Fats help your brain to operate at a better level, and protein helps your muscles recover and repair. But protein also will keep you fuller for longer because it takes longer to digest. So why am I going for fats and protein as opposed to carbs? The question I have for you is, do you need carbs? Do you have an extremely physically demanding job role first thing on the morning? So high protein, high fat actually suits most people on a morning because we want to be able to think on a morning. It's very rare that we are absolutely grafting first thing on a morning, and if we were, then a little bit of carbs may serve us very well. So similar to the concepts that I mentioned in the pre-work meal, this is just maintained. So you're eating based off when you're in this state of your blood sugar is completely normal. Like I said earlier on, you don't really get hungry, and it's a very satisfying place to be. It's like you're constantly at about a 5 out of 10. You can operate to a good standard. You don't really get angry and agitated because you're hungry. You don't get hangry, and you never really have a ridiculously elevated energy level. You're just always fairly consistent throughout the day. So then when it comes to the time to eat, because you're in this state of, calmness, you can call it, or it's like zen, you are more likely to make a sensible decision during work. Now, from that sensible state, in this state of logic and, balance, you're going to make a better decision, and this is where your salads, your vegetables, your meats can come into the mix. And as long as it's a very nutrient-dense meal, again, protein in, salad, happy days. You can get your fruit juice in, you can get your coffees in, all of this good stuff. But middle of the day, during work, you can actually start to have one eye on your training session for that day. So you can start to maybe bring in some good quality carbohydrates in order to support the intensity of that training session. So you can have one eye during work, but that doesn't mean if it's 12 midday and you're training at 6 that you need to be eating carbohydrates. If you were to have carbohydrates 6 hours prior to your training session, they wouldn't really do anything. So it's important that you start eating carbohydrates about 3 hours before your training session, and then top them up about an hour before your training session. But we'll get into that afterwards. So work's starting to come to an end during your work now, and now you're starting to think, okay, work's nearly finishing, I'm about to start training. So this is where we need to start bringing carbohydrates in. We don't necessarily need carbohydrates to start us off during the day. We don't need carbohydrates in the middle of the day either. You've got to think of why you are eating the food you're eating. Is it serving us a purpose, or is it actually causing us a few issues? What I didn't mention earlier on is that when you eat carbohydrates, you get a little bit of a high, and then you get a little bit of a low. When you are in that little bit of a low, your body's in a more fat storing state. It's in a state of stress. I need carbs, give me carbs. And you will go back to carbs. It's like a little vicious cycle of eating carbs, burning them off, eating carbs, burning them off, sugar, up, down, blood sugar, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. This causes all sorts of dramas with your insulin, and yeah, eventually this up, down, down, up, down from processed carbohydrates, 10, 20, 30 years down the line, diabetes, because your insulin is all messed up. Completely, to stabilise all of that completely, just get fat and protein down your neck earlier in the day. Completely chills out all of this. What's also good about having a high protein meals is that your body has the ability to draw out carbohydrates from protein if the body requires them carbohydrates. So for example, you have a meal that has like 50, 60, 70 grams of protein in. If your body needs the carbohydrates, it needs the glucose, then your body can go, yes, happy days, and it can just zap the protein down into glucose and go, yeah, I'm going to use this glucose for whatever I need to. So your body is a very smart thing, and it actually has the power to do that. Obviously, it cannot turn a bowl of cereal into protein and then repair your muscles with that, but it can do the opposite. So again, you're gonna get a lot more benefit from the high protein meal rather than a high carbohydrate meal. The downside of this being, obviously carbohydrates are massively accessible, cheaper, and they're just so available. Like every coffee shop you go into, you've got croissants, you've got biscuits, cakes, bowls of porridge, all that stuff. Easy to store, easy to take with you. But, and yeah, the downside of protein and fats is you have to cook the protein, you have to cook the eggs. That's the downside. It takes a little bit of time out of your day. But when it's bang for buck, what you are getting is so much more nutrients, so much more fuel for your muscles and your brain. So let's go back to the early afternoon. You've got one eye on your training session at this point. Like I said earlier on, protein and fats and high nutrient foods to start you off during the day. You'll feel so much better. Your blood sugar levels will be completely regulated. You won't feel like you've got loads of energy, but you won't feel like you've got barely any energy. Now you're starting to bring the energy up because you're thinking, I'm going to attack this gym session later on today. Then the carbohydrates come in. Studies show that you need about 60 grams of carbohydrates at the start of your training session. But just to be on the safe side, you will probably go more than that for your carbohydrate meal. So let's say, I don't know, chicken, rice, broccoli, proper basic bro science gym meal. It's about 2 hours out, and then before you actually go to the gym, about an hour out, you might have a banana and an apple just to top up the simple carbohydrates. Then, because the complex carbohydrates have then went up like this, you're at an elevated state, now the blood sugar's like this, and what you've done, because they'll start to come back down, you've got the banana and the apple here just to boost you back up, and then right at the start of that session, you're ready to go with the carbohydrates in the bloodstream, so then they can support muscle contractions throughout the start of your training session. Without them carbohydrates, they're ready. Say if you were still eating fats and protein, you just wouldn't have the snap, you wouldn't have the aggression, you wouldn't have the just that readiness at the start of your training session. Hopefully you understand the concepts and the meal examples that I've explained there. And then you go into, after your training session, after work, again, you would need to replace the carbohydrates, because after your training session, it's like, right, all your muscles are now empty. Your muscles store something called glycogen, which is broken down glucose. Your body needs to replace them, and basically, when you eat carbohydrates after your training session, they get digested extremely quickly and they go straight back to the muscles ready for your next training session. So your post-training session meal will be some carbohydrates, some protein, and then you're absolutely laughing. So, to summarise, the start of the day, you want good fats and a good amount of protein. The reason being, and honestly I want you to try this because it feels amazing, this will stabilise your blood sugar levels, and what it will allow you to do is stay fuller for longer. You won't get a crazy energy rush, and you won't get a drop off of energy. You will be a lot more sustained. Being sustained, halfway through the day, you are going to make a lot more of a sensible decision with your midday meal. It's not going to be a sandwich, it's not going to be something like a sugary drink, or it's going to be a better decision. And then mid-afternoon, this is all assuming that you train after work. Mid-afternoon, you've got one eye on your training session, so you want to fuel yourself with good quality carbohydrates. Before your training session, some simple carbohydrates like some fruit. Then you're into the gym, firing on all cylinders. Post-workout meal being a small amount of carbohydrates, trying to aim for the 60 grams of carbohydrates, some meat, and then happy days. That should be you sorted for the rest of the day. Gentlemen, hopefully you enjoyed this short video, just an overview of some concepts on maybe changing it up slightly in order to help your muscles, but more importantly, help your brain throughout work, and then you make that shift in focus to elevate your performance in the gym. So you've got two things, work and the gym. Fats and protein for work, the gym, carbohydrates need to be brought in the equation. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Straight down the line, nice and direct. See you in the next one.